with one more person on Zoom. If you're feeling lonely there, it's because everyone else has gone to Facebook because the audio is better. But great to see you. There, great to see everyone who's joining us on Facebook as well as those of you that are live. I've been asked to just do a little preamble while they move clunkily through the PowerPoint because I've asked if I can click forward the PowerPoint. So thanks for the interview. And I don't know if you noticed in the interview, it ended with a kind of good news, bad news thing going on there. So what's the good news? What are you optimistic about? What's the bad news? What are the challenges? And in a way, I want to bring you that kind of a message actually, except for the other way around. So I want to say bad news, good news, and then again one more time, bad news, good news. Which means that I really hope I get the timing right, otherwise we'll just leave you on bad news, and that your internet connections all work. Otherwise, again, we might just abandon you in the middle of bad news, which wouldn't be my hope or my aspiration for what we're trying to do here. Brilliant, well done, guys. So I want to talk about, within the theme of this whole life discipleship, bad news, good news, you see at the bottom there, bad news, good news. And if you can't see online what the PowerPoint is so easily, then I will read it all. Taking gathered church confidence into our scattered world. And there are two short readings I want to bring in order for us to think about that. From Jeremiah 17 and verse 7. But blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. And then Hebrews 3, 13 and 14. But encourage one another daily, as long as it's called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. We have come to share in Christ, if indeed we hold our original conviction firmly to the very end. It's brilliant to be here. Really enjoyed the worship as well. Thank you. Really enjoyed that, as well as being with Raglan Baptist this morning. I know you were online. Carol, saw you there. Great that you could be there. We missed you, Emma. I know you were online as well. Praying for your family. So, bad news, good news, bad news, good news. And one way to look at it, I'll explain in just a moment, but just to pick up on one of your questions, Chris, about I'll work with young people, what we can do with young people. Within LICC, there are 2 or 3 groups in. On the right-hand side is our Instagram. I just took a quick snap of one of our Instagram pictures. We often pick up a different area of work each day or each week and think about it. So we think about chefs just recently. And we have, you can run them yourself, programs for the first 10 years of work called Rooted, and for student life called Launched. And we do a whole range of things like that, just trying to help people connect with what these issues might be. And not so very long ago, Mark and Emma asked me to speak at your assembly, and I brought this illustration to you. But this is part of the bad news, good news thing. So if you've seen it before, I'm going to add some things. If you haven't seen it before, I'll explain it to you. Just out of interest for those who are live, who has seen this illustration before? Like 3 of you. So that's helpful for me to know. So there are 100 dots there. And the dots represent the population of the UK. And the red dots represent Christians. So they represent those who would call themselves Christians and attend church in person or online at least once a month. And we can have that view of church, you see, that we gather together as red dots and we try and bring in some of the grey dots to join us. But actually, for most of the time, most of the week, this is the reality. The same number of red dots, but we're out and about in all sorts of different school and college and university and leisure and neighbours and family connections, making so many more connections with so many more grey dots, such that when we're together, we can equip one another for when we're apart. So in fact, what I'm doing here is really it's like the half-time team talk in a game of 2 halves. And we're supposed to encourage and equip and support one another to get back out there in the game. Now, here's the bad news. We've been using this illustration as an organisation for maybe 20 years. LICC as an organisation is 40 years old this year. Started in 1982 with a guy called John Stott, who some of you might have heard of. Doesn't matter if you have or haven't, but we've been using this illustration for 20 years. When we started this illustration, it had 7 red dots, and now it has 6. So the numbers are declining. They're not dropping off a cliff, but they are declining. But the good news is we can still have so much influence. We're still connecting with so many people, even if we were to add up those on screen and those live, the number of people that we connect with. So that's really good news. One element of bad news that we don't often talk about, though, is that it is easier to feel confident in this setting. It's easier to feel confident when we're gathered than when we're scattered. It just feels a little bit more lonely in those times. And there's something about the times that we're in right now where it feels even more so. Like things have moved such that we used to be the good guys. And now we've moved from that to being one of the good guys to, in some settings, the bad guys. And so that's not true everywhere. And lots of people still hugely respect our faith and what we do. But it can just feel a little bit more vulnerable now. And yet we still have this message of hope. So my question for tonight really is, what can we do when we're gathered that can help us to have greater confidence when we're scattered? Are you with me? Now, some of you won't be with me because you're thinking, well, I'm just confident anyway. I'm really happy to talk about my faith. And it's not just words, by the way. It's the whole way that we live. Really happy in any number of contexts. But unless you're an exception, this is a deal for a lot of us. And so if this isn't your issue and you're happy to be confident about your faith in every way, wherever you go, God bless you. But the people sitting next to you probably don't feel like that. So for a number of us, this is a challenge and this is an issue. And so sometimes what happens is, even on the move from gathered on a Sunday to our programs in the week, we can sort of lose our edge just a little bit. And they can soften just a little bit. There's a danger, at least, of drifting to the point of losing our confidence in the message of hope that we have in the gospel. It's not that those running those events would say that, but the way they practice it, it loses its power because we've lost and watered down what it was that we were trying to do. And if that's the case in midweek activities in the church, how much more so when we're scattered? So, bad news is we're aging and declining from 7 to 6. The good news is we have so many opportunities all around us. The bad news is we can lose some confidence when we're scattered. The good news is that there are some things that we can do which will grow that confidence. And we want to grow confidence in a particular way as well. We don't want to have a kind of arrogant confidence, because that would just put people off. But if we can have a kind of kind and humble confidence, then that will really win over with the message that we want to convey. So picture kind of kind, humble confidence, which we see in God's word so often. And I want to suggest a number of things that might help us with that. And the first, and these are all a bit experimental, by the way. This is a new subject for us from LICC, and we're just exploring it. So you're one of the first people to kind of hear us explore these things. I've got 6 ideas, but I'm actually going to just mention 3 tonight and just show you the other 3 because we're just experimenting with them. Confidence grows through being convinced. The more convinced I am, the more confident I am. And if I can remember why I'm convinced when I'm together with others, that will help me to be confident when I'm apart. And I picked this illustration because I learned to abseil in Wales years and years ago. And I found that when I do something scary like that, like abseiling, I tend to feel more confident when I've got something to hold on to. And I don't just literally mean the rope. I'm that sort of person. Some people are all going home and they just go about abseil anyway. Some people have too much fear for it to be their thing. I'm somewhere in the middle. So I'll quietly ask the instructor, have they done this before? Half joking. And if they say yes, then that helps me to have some confidence. And if they say no, then I'm probably not going to do it. I'll quietly ask, that's interesting rope you've got there. what sort of weight would that carry? I'm just interested, you know, and because I may have put on a few pounds in lockdown, and I just want to check. And if they'll say it take the weight of a small car, then I'm happy with that, and it kind of gives me some confidence. I'll quietly glance over at the anchor points for that rope and see that they look secure. If all of those points look good, then I feel good to go. I prefer to go second, but I'm good to go in those circumstances. Now, none of those checks give me 100% confidence, but they give me enough to be convinced. And the more convinced I am, then the more confident I am. Now, the risen Jesus, he knew that his disciples needed to be convinced. So he spent time with them after the resurrection. He reassured them. He confirmed things for them. And today, one of the key evidences for us of the resurrection, and one of my favourite go-to places to be convinced, and in turn then to be confident, is the lives that those first disciples lived. Because they either saw the risen Jesus or they didn't. And they were so few in number, many fewer than 6 red dots, were prepared to pay the ultimate price, almost all of them, because they were so convinced in the risen Jesus. And that's just one example, but we could explore others if we had time. But do you have some go-to places like that help you to be convinced when you're gathered, such that you can carry that with you when you're scattered and know why you're convinced? Because if you're convinced, you're more likely to be confident. The second example that might help you is to know something of community. Confidence grows through community. That reading, but encourage one another, from Hebrews, daily, as long as it's called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. We encourage one another daily. Encourage, as in give one another courage daily. Which means that we're called to try and find ways and find time to give courage to one another when we're together, such that that person will have courage when we're apart. If part of the reason we lack confidence on our front lines is that we feel more alone, part of the answer to that is realising that we're not alone. We have the promise of Jesus to be with us. He's there by his Spirit. Our God is Lord of every place, wherever we will find ourselves. He is Lord there. And we also have the command to love and support one another in the same way that Jesus loves us. And when we do that for each other, we help give one another confidence. On top of which, my resolve grows if I know that there are some other people praying about something for me on my front line. I know that they're going to be asking me about it. If a Christian friend happens to send a message that drops onto my phone, assuring me of their prayers, I'm reminded that I'm not alone by that WhatsApp message. We've been recently, because it's our 40th anniversary, asking people to send in stories, just 200-word stories, of what does this look like for you to be a disciple of Jesus on your front line. We use the word front line, meaning the place in your week where you spend most time with people who don't yet know Jesus. It could be a workplace, it could be a leisure place, family, it could be neighbours, anywhere. We used to say workplace, but front lines are a wider and more helpful term. And one person talked about the fact that a woman called Bev, I think her name is, she said that she is in a charity that helps with adoption and fostering. And it's incredibly difficult, incredibly tragic stories sometimes. But she will get her home group, her small group, without betraying confidences, to be praying for some of those children and some of the situations and some of the things that she faces. And that helps build her confidence. It helps give her greater confidence. I wonder if we can do that for each other. What helps to grow and give you confidence in situations like that? Confidence grows when it's done so through community. The word translated encourage in that Hebrews passage has two words in it, para and kaleo. Para means to come alongside. So if I'm encouraging someone, I come alongside them. And kaleo means to beckon or to call to action. So if I encourage someone, I come alongside them and I call them, urge them into action to represent Jesus well. Last example that I'm going to spend any time on is that confidence grows through compassion. So not all emotions are equal, I don't think. And a lack of confidence is quite a strong emotion, but it can be overruled by a lot of compassion. If I really have something of the love of Jesus for somebody, that can kind of overrule my nervousness. Because I just have to go and help them. Because the love of Jesus overrules for me. It says when Jesus was willing to go to the cross, that he did so for the joy set before him. He endured the cross. So his compassion overruled any concern or any nervousness in the end. The joy is in the rescue, and that his joy was you. His joy was me. So the good news is that there are some things that overrule any lack of confidence, if you relate to the things that I'm saying. Now, I just want to, because this is experimental for us, I've just whistled through three of them, show you where my thinking has got to on this. I think confidence can grow, and it needs to grow, if we have these things. It can grow by being convinced. To know why you're convinced when you're gathered will help us to have confidence when we're gathered. It can grow by a supportive community. And that's part of the purpose of coming here, or being together online, or in the church that you're part of. We support one another, and then that gives us confidence to take into our frontline situations. We can have confidence by studying Jesus, spending time with him, and praying for his heart, and that cultivates compassion. Now, the three I haven't mentioned, I think we can grow in confidence by daily consistency. If I have daily ways of thinking and praying for today, regular ways of recognizing and remembering Jesus, then that will give me confidence to take into my frontline situation. I can grow in confidence by developing competence. So sometimes I might be nervous because I don't think I'm quite qualified or know what to say if something tricky comes up. But if when we gather here, it is like the half-time team talk, then we can equip one another for those tricky situations, for the things that are likely to come up, and we can grow in confidence. It's like a training ground situation when we're together in small groups and in services. And when you train enough, then you feel more confident when you're apart. And finally, sometimes confidence grows just by taking a gulp and going for it. So confidence grows through resolved commitment. I'm convinced, you see, that the good news wins in the end, and that the thing that really matters and will really make a difference, could make a huge difference to our stream of churches and churches in the UK, is if we go out with confidence, knowing that that's the deal for each of us, and knowing that part of being together is to help develop that and to grow it when we're together. I wonder if that resonates with you. I wonder if there's something in that, or even the three things that are particularly majored on, that you could take away. Maybe the giving confidence to others, the knowing why you're convinced, the developing the compassion of Jesus. Maybe one of those three things is your takeaway for today. I mentioned that one person who works in adoption and one small story. I'm collecting lots of these stories at the moment. I think of one other person who, a woman who works for the local authority, and her issue with confidence is that some of the people that she works with, they've already started with a negative image of Christianity because of something that's happened in their past, because of something that somebody else has said, nothing to do with her. And so that's her starting point and why she lacks confidence and why she needs other people to encourage her. But nevertheless, she is doing that. And she's trying to show compassion, trying to show the love of Jesus. And that is making a difference. And some of the stories that we're collecting are just people doing brilliant and amazing things, from somebody who has changed their view of their dog walking routine to being their front line and taking their earphones off to just join in the conversations with the other dog walkers and now pray about that opportunity, to somebody who is a judge, a high court judge, who is praying that they represent Jesus well in those circumstances. What I'm trying to collect is 40 stories across different ages, across the UK, from different people's front lines, to then make a 40-day devotional journey, reading, and short version of the story, and a prayer. And I'm mentioning that to you now because I don't have any stories from Wales at the moment. And I would love a few Welsh stories across the ages. If you felt you could send one to me, then I would absolutely love that. 40 faces, 40 places is what we're going to call it. And this theme of confidence is one that I'm writing at the moment, again as a 40-day journey for Lent, just as an experimental Lent thing at the moment. So it's not a full product yet from LICC, but if you're interested this Lent, so from the 2nd of March, in a daily little reading that is in and around this area of those 6 C's I said, then you can email me there, or there is a Facebook group for it as well, but easier to find us on that email, lent.confidence@licc.org.uk, and I'll make sure you can get this experimental little journey. And I'd love your comments so that we can get it really right when it becomes a product for a wider group of people. If you want to connect with us, if this whole theme of being a whole life disciple really resonates with you, because I know, talking to Mark and Emma, that we think we want to see how we could make this a key element for churches together, Baptist together churches in South Wales. How could we get this embedded in the life of the church? Then there are a number of things that you could do. You could go to licc.org.uk/sign up and get our mailings. A thought dropped in every Monday, a thought dropped in every Friday, one based on something going on in culture. Every Friday, one based on something going on that somebody's read from God's Word every Monday, for example. If you want to support our work, because you think this mission is vital, and nobody else is quite doing it like this, supporting where God's people are spending most of their time through the week, then you could go to our donate page, licc.org.uk/donate. And again, just a repetition of that Lent journey, lent.confidence@licc.org.uk. Would love a few of you to join. And please use that email as well. If you're willing to send me your story, then I'll show you where you can link to, because I'd love it when people read it, that there was some from Scotland, some from Northern Ireland, some from all the different parts of England, and some from North and South Wales, and just a variety, as well as a variety of ages. And that's our social media from which to be connected. That's enough publicity. So what I want to do now is to pray in this idea of confidence for those who feel that they need greater confidence in the thing that we carry into our world. Let's pray. Lord, could it be, Lord, that we could move from bad news to good news by being people who show and display and convey greater confidence? Could it be, Lord, that you're calling us to know why we're convinced, to encourage one another daily, and to develop something of the compassion of Jesus, such that compassion trumps lack of confidence? Show us which of those things is for us for today again. And help this value of equipping all of God's people for all of their places to be increasingly used across our churches in South Wales. Amen.